Next thing I want to talk about is kind of related to the fourth turn, but maybe not, but was more about Bitcoin.
Oh, Bitcoin.
So Bitcoin, I want to talk about Bitcoin as money, and then not only as money, but as a new type of accounting, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So, and I just tried to explain this last week, but I think I'm interested to have an actual human here that I could talk to see if I'm making sense. But essentially, there's five aspects of, or couple different aspects of money. And just something, in order for something to be money, it needs to be, first is it needs to be scarce.
Yeah.
Because if it's not scarce, then there's really no value to it. If it's like sand. Then there's also divisibility, so it needs to be divisible into different units. If we only had $100 bills, that wouldn't be very helpful because the cheapest thing would be $100 because there's no division into it. It needs to be portable because money wouldn't really be helpful if you couldn't really bring it around. It needs to be durable, so it needs to be able to last. And then it needs to be recognizable. So if me or you don't recognize it as money, then it's not helpful. So Bitcoin, at least the way I see it, it does fulfill those five functions of money. So it could be considered as money. I mean, it's infinitely scarce. If there's only 21 million coins, it's portable because you can store it in your head and walk around anywhere.
So, like a Bitcoin, say you own a Bitcoin, would you like have a number to memorize to punch in and go, that's your Bitcoin?
So the way that the Bitcoin, so yes, you could store Bitcoin in multiple ways. One of the ways that you could do it is you could store it in your head. So there is a long, it's called your private key, which is like a long alphanumeric, I think it's like a 256-digit alphanumeric string. So a combination of letters and numbers. And that's a very, obviously it's hard for people to recognize as that.
Good luck with that, memorizing it.
The way they've gotten around this is they've created words. So they have like the word thug might represent A7QX, or they have essentially your passphrase. Your passphrase is like a collection of 12 to 20 or 24 words. 12 is more than enough, but 24 is too. So those 12 words then represent your 256 digit.
So you'd have a catchphrase or something.
Yeah, that you can remember, and then you can store that in your head. So it is portable, and then it's divisible because each Bitcoin. So there's 21 million Bitcoins, but each Bitcoin can be divisible up to 8 decimals. So the smallest unit of a Bitcoin is called a Satoshi. So 0.0000701 Bitcoin is one Satoshi. So each Bitcoin is 100 million Satoshis. So it's, and if that number could also, you could just keep extending the decimal point out. So you could divide bits of it as a Satoshi. So essentially what I'm saying is that Bitcoin is money because it fulfills all the functions of money. But I think the more interesting thing to me is that not only is it money, but it uses a different type of accounting system. So right now our society is built on double entry accounting. If we think of the history of accounting, back in the caveman days, you could say zero entry accounting. So if we were cavemen and we were in a tribe, I might do you a favor, maybe you trade me some meat, and we don't record it anywhere. We don't write it down, but it's in our heads, right? Like I remember, Uncle John gave me some meat yesterday, or I helped Uncle John with my thing, but we didn't write it down or record our trade anywhere. So that you could think of that as like zero entry accounting. There's no records of anything, but it's all, we all get along because we remember things. And if, I give you meat a couple times in a row and you don't give me any favors back, I might get angry because, but there's no proof. I just say, we did this thing. And then, obviously that got difficult because nothing's written down anywhere. So then they invented single entry accounting. So this is when the pharaohs and the kings.
Yeah, they would have like little marks.
Yeah, little
like
tablets.
On a clay tablet. I forget what they're called. Cuneiform or something? Or, I know they would have these rolls. I know, what was it?
Papyrus rolls.
Yeah, or the people in the Fertile Crescent were into that.
Yeah.
Good at recording.
So it was a great innovation because, now we have records of things. But the problem with single entry is only the pharaoh or the king has the record. So if you trade with the pharaoh and the pharaoh just says, no, actually you owed me 10,000 grains of grain. And you said, no, we agreed to 1,000. Well, the pharaoh could say, well, my record in the record says that you owe me this. So the problem with single entry was that you had the king or the pharaoh had all the power because they had the only entry. So that was single entry accounting. And then they invented double entry accounting. So if me and you make a transaction, you get a record of what we traded. So maybe I traded you salt and you gave me some meat in exchange.
Yeah, I have it written down on my
We'd
little
write that down. We each get a copy. That would be great because we have 2 entries. But the problem with double entry accounting is that you could change your record or I could change my record. So we could get into some dispute and you could just erase your number and I could erase my number.
Yeah.
So we have 2 entries now. So the way we got around this is we would find a trusted third party to store our double entry. So we would each get a record. Then we say, hey, we'll store our double entry at a bank. And then the bank would just hold the double entry. Now this works because we don't have the kings or the pharaohs. Now there's 2 records, so both parties have a record of what happened. But the problem is this system requires a lot of trust. So we have to trust a bank. We have to trust that the bank will keep our record safe and have it be accurate.
Yeah.
And obviously this trust and this concentration of power is kind of a problem because, as we saw with things like Enron, trust, just because you trust someone doesn't mean that's already that trust is.
Yeah, we could be very screwed over by establishment.
Yeah, so that kind of led to the death of the king and pharaoh, but the rise of the institution. So the rise of banks and merchants as these trusted third parties that essentially aren't part of the transactions, but they're just their role is to be trusted and to hold the double entry. So what Bitcoin does is it's a fundamental innovation of it's kind of, you can think of it as like a triple entry accounting. So now with Bitcoin, you have a record, I have a record, and what Bitcoin does, and Bitcoin is also the invention of blockchain. What the blockchain does is it takes a third record and says, okay, you get a record, I get a record, but we're going to make a third record in a public database in the cloud so that everyone has a record of it. So now there's 3 records, so that if you or I fudge our numbers, we can go look at the third record, which is essentially in the cloud or in a database instead of at a bank. So I think it's interesting to think, and I think Bitcoin is an invention on par with like a Gutenberg press of it's literally, if our whole society is built on double entry accounting, what happens if triple entry accounting is better than double entry because we don't need, now me and you can transact without having to trust a middleman. That means the entire society needs to be rebuilt on triple entry accounting. And I think the effects of that, adopting triple entry accounting would be pretty profound because then we wouldn't need to trust institutions and they would have less power.
You have a whole different system.
Which is exciting when you think of some of the problems with our current kind of whether it's government or these big institutions that are nameless, faceless. They're not people, but they have so much power in this society.
Did you hear about this guy they were talking about at the Libertarian? They want him freed. Is it Bob Ross or something?
I think it was the founder of the Silk Road.
What do you think about that? Should he be freed or is he a criminal?
I mean, the government says he's a criminal. But he was arrested like back when Bitcoin was invented. And obviously, criminals. I mean, like the thuggies, they are they're the first adopters of like innovative technologies. So at that point, what's his name? Ross Ulbricht.
Yeah.
So he was like the founder of Silk Road, which was like the first iteration of like, it was a drug marketplace where people were doing some pretty illegal things on the internet, like using Bitcoin because you wouldn't, if you wanted to launder drug money, it's best to not have to go through a bank to launder that money. So the criminals were like the early adopters of Bitcoin technology. It's like, great, now we can launder money without having to talk to a bank because they don't like us. I don't know. I don't know too much about his specific case. I do think, I mean, I personally am probably more on the side of freedom and technology in blockchain, whereas obviously the people in power, it kind of threatens the whole, a lot of the assumptions that our society is currently based on is that we need these powerful, trusted institutions to kind of mediate. But I think it's I don't know. I don't know too much about his case. I know of him generally.
Okay, I was just wondering about it. But then wasn't there a guy with frizzy hair?
Yeah, Sam Bankman-Fried.
He made a ton of money, then he lost it all, then he went to jail.
So Sam Bankman-Fried was So yeah, Bitcoin is so, and even they call it. You can think of Bitcoin as the invention of blockchain. And essentially, this technology, this peer-to-peer, you can think of like peer-to-peer, this blockchain of this triple ledger means that you're going to have all sorts of different technologies. So this Sam Fried, he was running this trading firm, and he was doing also, so he had like the right credentials, right? I think like his parents were like Ivy League educated, and he could like speak the lingo of like the Wall Street types. So he was like, kind of all the Wall Street people jumped on of like, look at this guy, he's one of us, he's got the right credentials, and he knows how to talk, and he's a crypto guy. But he was like, he was trading Bitcoins, but also all sorts of other cryptocurrencies, because essentially all these other cryptocurrencies, they're not knockoffs, but they're taking the technology, the blockchain technology, and trying to apply it to other things. And it's so easy. It's like the Wild West of the internet. So he was just kind of trading, and there's all types of weird things, but he was scamming people.
Oh, okay.
But that's Sam Bankman Fried.
Oh, there he is. Yeah, I heard he's a weird guy.
Well, and he kind of scammed the people that we're supposed to trust. Like, I think he lost a lot of people money because essentially all these trusted institutions that were supposed to do their due diligence on him, like, just kind of took him at his face value. And
we let rich guys do that a lot.
Well, and that's
there's a lot,
because that's I think. So he was. I mean, I think the Web3 space is kind of interesting too, because I think like Web 1 was, you probably remember too, like email of basically when internets were just like displays of information, right? That was like Web 1. You'd go on.
Yeah, well, this is the thing. I didn't go online then. I was like, what are the people? I would watch other geeks do that. I'm like, what are they talking about? It was only because I was like, you would watch other people just type down stuff on these green screens. And they'd be like, I know Cobalt 5. Like, I know this different computer language. And I'm like, I didn't approach it then until Apple made it approachable.
Yeah. So like Web 1 was like, there was just information displayed on a web page. And then like Web 2 is kind of like Facebook, or when like the web became interactive, you had the ability to post things and like almost create content. So the fact that you could leave a Facebook comment, so you could type something and post it, and now that was part of the internet, was kind of Web 2. But what that led to was, again, like these centralized platforms, whether it's Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. You had these large companies that own your data because they own your user data, they own what you post. Whereas Web 3 and people have kind of taken this triple ledger, this peer-to-peer technology, and applying it to other things. So hopefully, I think the blissful, optimistic future of Web 3 will be that it will create an internet where you'll actually own your data. So you'll be able to kind of port over from website to website and take your data with you.
Oh, okay.
Because instead of using, essentially instead of using the double ledger kind of database system, we'll use a triple ledger of your data won't be stored on Facebook servers or Twitter servers. It will be stored in a public database.
Oh,
and then
keep it,
so I think there's lots of promise, and I think it's interesting. I compare like Web 3 and blockchain to almost like the invention of like the new world. Like I'd think if you were living in like the old world of whether it's Ireland and potato famine, or Italy, and someone just do, hey, there's this giant new continent on the other side of the ocean. You can just go there. There's no rules, and there's lots of resources. I think that's kind of similar to this moment. We've kind of discovered everywhere on Earth, but the internet still offers frontiers for people to explore and create new wealth.